So, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'm driving right now. I just seem to have some of my best thought processes while I'm driving and while I'm taking a shower. But there won't be any, there won't be any of me when I'm taking a shower. But I thought, why not take advantage of this time instead of always trying to remember what I was going to talk about when I get home, or in a place where I can record a video, or where life isn't interfering in one way or another. So I've learned a lot of information lately, a tremendous amount, especially in the last 3 months. And so there's really a whole lot I want to share. But I think probably the best place for me to start with the nonviolent communication, because I really want to get this to you guys, is this concept of observing without evaluating. And I heard a quote that said, to observe one's behaviors without evaluating them. Something about it being the greatest human strength. And I believe it, because I have been practicing this observing without evaluating, and it is very difficult to do. I ain't gonna lie. The language that we've been taught, because we've all been taught the same language, which he calls it the jackal language. And then this new language, Marshall Rosenberg is his name, that, developed this nonviolent communication. He spent his whole life doing it. He calls the giraffe language. And he calls it the giraffe language because it's the land animal with the largest heart, which makes me love giraffes even more. So I think that's probably the most important thing to bring to you guys first, is just learning how to observe without evaluating someone's behaviors. So he gives an example of when he was called to this school where the staff was having a very hard time working with the principal. So this is a really good description of evaluation instead of observation. So he goes to the staff first and he's like, I just want to meet with all of you guys and let's get to the bottom of exactly what this guy is doing that makes it difficult to work with him. So one guy pipes up real quick and he's like, I can tell you. And he goes, okay, what's the principal doing that makes it hard for you to work with him? And the first guy goes, he's got a big mouth. And we all do this, and it's so easy to laugh at it, but when you really start trying to describe a behavior versus your evaluation of the behavior, you'll be kind of laughing at yourself too, because we don't realize that we're doing it. We were taught to do this, and everybody around us does it all the time, so we're not ever given an example of how not to do it. So Rosenberg says to the guy, he says, no, I didn't ask you the size of the guy's mouth. I asked you what he actually does. What is his behavior? And so somebody else says, oh, he talks too much. And Rosenberg says again, that again is an evaluation. Talks too much would be your definition, your analysis, because what talks too much to you could be doesn't talk enough to someone else. So once again, it's just an evaluation. What does he actually do? So they're going around the room and it's just more of the same. And then finally one of the ladies says, well, I know what he does. Maybe I can help him. And Rosenberg's like, sure, absolutely. We want to get to the bottom of this. So, what is it that the principal does that makes it hard to work with him? And the lady goes, well, he just thinks he's the only one who has anything important to say. He goes, once again, that's an evaluation. And so they keep going around the room, and people keep offering more evaluations, and no one has a specific behavior. And then finally someone comes up with a specific behavior, being that when they're in the staff meetings, everything that is talked about reminds him of a story. And so they end up being in the staff meeting 20, 30, 40 minutes longer than they need to, and it really cuts into everybody else's work schedule. So he's like, okay, we've got a specific behavior. And he goes around the room and he's like, has anybody ever brought this to his attention? And everybody in the room kind of chuckles, because now they've all kind of realized that they've never actually talked to him about his behavior, just his evaluation, just their evaluations of him, which has created resistance and defensiveness in the principal. So there's never been any resolution. So everybody's all excited, and then they ask Rosenberg to join them in the next staff meeting to kind of help them approach the principal with it. So he goes into the meeting, and Rosenberg can definitely see right away exactly what everybody's talking about, because every time something's brought up, the principal says, oh, that reminds me of a story, and goes off into a tangent about some war story or some childhood story. And he gets tired of waiting for someone to say something, and so he finally speaks up and he says, is anybody going to say anything? And of course the first guy in the first meeting goes, you've got a big mouth. And Rosenberg is like, oh, it seems like I wasn't really clear on how to approach these things. And so a couple more people pipe off, and then finally one of the ladies from the group remembers exactly what they had stated and states that to the principal directly. When we're in these staff meetings, we never stay on the subject at hand. Most things remind you of a story you'd like to share, and the staff meetings end up running 20, 30, 40 minutes longer than they were scheduled, and it really cuts into the work that we need to do. And the principal immediately just stops, and he's like, oh, I had no idea. And the solution was immediately resolved. So that's a good example of when we evaluate instead of observing. That was a really little weird light that just deflected down. Did you guys see that? I saw that. So I kind of wish this video was interactive in the way that somebody could like ask me a question and be like, hey, so this is how I feel about this or that. Is that an observation or an evaluation? Because that would be really good feedback. But I guess what I'm like saying maybe you guys should give a try to is actually getting to the bottom of the person's behavior. Boy, he's way better at this than I am. I'm still new. I'm a newbie. But it's huge. It's absolutely huge. Like any of the interactions I've been having with my honey, my significant other, which have been pretty strained lately. Well, as of the last few days, it's not strained at all, which is really beautiful. The conversations have really flowed, and but first learning this and then thinking about the ways that he was upsetting me, when I actually got all the way down to the actual behavior instead of all the evaluations of it, I saw that a lot of my feelings about it kind of dissipated, like they weren't as strong. I'm trying to think of a really good example to give you guys right now, because my belief is that a lot of the struggles that we have really are in our close relationships. It's nice to be able to interact with a coworker in a way that doesn't like lead to more frustration and everything, but ultimately those things are really easy to not, for us not to let it get the better of us. I do think that the work relationships can be pretty close to as important as our intimate relationships, in the sense that we spend so much time with them that the more easily that those situations flow, the better it is. But I think our intimate, like family relationships, significant other relationships, relationships with our children, parents, siblings, that kind of stuff, matters to us more than any other relationships in the world. As well as when we're in those moments with those people and our feelings are hurt or we're all stirred up, we're a lot more reactive in those moments, and it's a lot easier for us to evaluate the other person instead of just simply observing them. So another good example of this, well, no, that's another thing. I don't know why I always feel at the end of these videos that I didn't really offer any help. Like, I feel like I don't get it out in a way that it is in my brain. Because, like, in my brain, I'm like, this is, like, really some legitimate information. Like, this is the shit. And then when I get done explaining it, I'm like, I wonder if it made any sense to anybody else. Like, if I delivered it in a good way. So I guess feedback on this one would be really good, but I'm really excited about this information, and there is so much to know about it that I think if I can do like a small video on it every day, small being under 15 minutes for me, and explain it in ways that maybe it'll actually trigger the questions that you guys are having, but if anything, just a small portion of having a little bit more awareness about how we interact with other people and how quick we are to evaluate them instead of just observe them is what creates more tension in our relationships. So maybe spend a couple of days just observing the person's actions, like actually observing their behaviors, and then seeing what evaluations come up for us. And seeing that if when we observe the actual action, instead of attaching the evaluation that we have of it, like why the person did it or what their behavior's about or any of that, if we feel differently about the behavior because we're just observing the behavior instead of adding all of our evaluations. So play around with that for a few days. Go back to incidences that, like, maybe you've got a big thing going on between you and somebody else, your really good friend, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, a coworker, any of that stuff. Like, go back and look at this situation and observe the actual behavior of the person and remove the evaluations of why they did it, what it means to you, how it made you feel, all that other stuff. Just look at their behavior and see if it changes how you feel about the situation and how maybe you can approach the situation differently. And then let me know if this made any difference for you guys, if the way that I'm explaining things is really beneficial, or if you guys are left with more questions, or if I'm over explaining, because I really want to bring this stuff to you guys in a way, and I'm doing a deep training on it right now, so I really want to bring it to you guys in a way that's beneficial, that's helping you guys too, because I'm absolutely blown away by how much easier all communication comes from this nonviolent communication, as well as what an understanding it has brought to me about what's really going on for me in these interactions with other people. And I just love you guys. I love that you guys are watching this and engaging in this, and just let me know how I could be better at it, or if I'm being good enough and you guys are getting a lot from it. So I love you guys mucho. We will talk again really soon, and I hope you're having a great Monday. Bye.